Hey everyone, welcome to the Happily Ever After 40 podcast. I am your host, Tamika Michelle. Um, I am so excited to have our guest on, Jeneen, today. This is a very, very necessary and needed topic, but it's about dating, specifically dating over 40 as a single parent of both young and older children. Jeneen is a single parent strategist, solutionist, and consultant. So, first, welcome, Jeneen. Thank you for coming on and joining us today.
Yeah, so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So everyone, if you know my story, you know that I was a single parent before I got married. I had my daughter at 25, and I basically was a single parent from the time that she was born on. And I had definitely just it was very interesting dating as a single parent. And I made some decisions based on being a single parent that were not actually at the time. I thought they were the best decisions. At the moment, they actually were not, and we'll talk about those a little bit
Mhm.
later. But first, we're going to kind of introduce and get Jeneen's story, her background, and how she got involved with becoming a solutionist for a single parent. So, Janine, tell us a little bit about your personal experience and approach as it relates to, um, well, actually, how you got started being a single parent solutionist.
Well, really, it was me just being a voice for single parents when I became a single parent by divorce and just seeing a lot of the things that were going on as far as the stigmas, as far as stereotypes. It was just a lot of negative information that I was getting as it pertained to myself and my children. And, looking at that information and saying, gosh, I don't fit any of these. My kids are not going to be kids that fail in school or have emotional issues, or I'm not going to be a single mom that is struggling financially, or my kids were not going to be considered as a broken home. And as I was just digging a little bit deeper, I felt like I needed to advocate. I needed to bring this information to people's attention to let them know that, this is kind of the standard of how people think of single parents, especially single mothers. And so I really kind of started just advocating, sharing my story, my journey. And as I kind of went on, I really felt like, you know, what better way can I help this community? What better way can I help this demographic? And it just kind of flowed into me, being a life coach to single parents and kind of just talking them through, some of the things that they were dealing with as it pertains to them being single parents. And then, just building upon that. So that's really how it all started, me just being a voice. And then it just kind of flowed into what I'm doing today.
Okay, great. So like I said, I was basically a single parent from the time my daughter was born. What is your story? How did you become a single parent?
Yes, so I was married 8 years, young, didn't know any better. You hear other people give you that advice as far as maybe you should wait, but I felt like, this was love and I wanted to be married so bad and got married, was married 8 years, and the marriage just didn't work. So there's infidelity, a lot of things that were going on that just wasn't healthy. And I knew that in order for me to be healthy, as a person, as an individual, I could not be in this marriage. And so after 8 years, it pretty much was me deciding because of his actions, and we were just not equally yoked, as we matured. I could tell that it was just not going to work. And so, married 8 years, went through a divorce. I don't ever say that I'm divorced. I say that it's just something that I went through. And so now I'm single again. But when I went through the divorce, my children were about, my son, maybe 5 years old. My daughter was around 3. And, I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to raise my kids on my own for the most part. And, he could go live your life the best that you can, but away from me.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand. So let me ask you this. Were your kids a factor in deciding whether or not you were going to get divorced, whether you stayed, were you going to try to just wait it out? Were they ever a consideration in determining, when you finally left or moved on?
They were because, my parents and being from a household where my parents are still married and seeing that dynamic, That was something that I wanted for my children. I wanted my children to be able to see what a loving home is. And our household was just not that, I was really, my self esteem was a factor in the marriage. When you are kind of sitting there and you're, having that kind of emotional abuse that was happening as far as the things that he was doing and not being truthful and me finding things, how could I parent healthy? How could I be that, for my children? How can my children want something for themselves in their future, as far as being married themselves? And the only thing that they could really relate to is a dysfunctional household. So I decided, not only for myself, but it would just be healthier and better, for us just to be the three of us. And let me just focus on healing the core of us, the three of us, and not having that negative dynamic as far as the marriage was concerned. It just wasn't healthy. So yeah, it was a part of me being healthy for myself, but just wanting my children to really be in a healthy household as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, you say that you were married in that situation, but there are other women, and I was, a prime example that I was in a long-term situation. Everyone knows my situation history. But I kind of dealt with the same things, and it was about a 10-year. It was a 10-year relationship. So, um, but my daughter, I have to say, my daughter was the main reason. When I look back on it, was the main reason why I stayed. It was a situation, and I'll say this because I kind of want to put this out there, and we'll talk about this a little bit later.
Mhm.
The person I was with, I never want to say that he was a bad person. Um, I think that he was an incredible father, which is probably the reason that we were together, or I had some attraction in the beginning because he
Mhm.
had 3 kids when we met. I had my daughter. My daughter and his two youngest kids, they were twins. They were the same age. They were like months apart. And so he was a great father. Like he was there twice a week. He got them twice a week when they were younger, every other week, and like faithfully half of the summer. And I thought that was great because my daughter didn't have it. We didn't. She didn't have it from her dad.
Mm.
And so, one of the things I kind of want to tell people and have told people, you cannot equate a man being a good father as the same thing as being a good partner or a good
Good.
mate. And I think a lot of women actually confuse it, or they try to make it work, making it just something that it's not. Great father, just he was just in a different place relationship wise. Is that something that you experience with some of your clients or with you or some of your friends or anything like that? Have you seen that before? Just kind of staying in a relationship and just, trying to make it work and it really isn't working, but, the guy's a good father to his kids and maybe even a good role model to your children, but just, not good in a relationship.
Right. So some of my clients, they definitely felt like they needed to stay. And as they have broken up or whatever you want to call it, deciding to be separate, whether they were married or not, they felt like there was a lot more, it was a lot healthier for them and for their children. So they had to come to that realization for themselves. And of course, most of the people that I speak to are and help our single parents or single mothers. And so a lot of them, have to get outside of that realization that they think for themselves only, and they don't really consider their children. And I trying to find the best way to say that. As far as them feeling lonely and always feeling as if they leave that door open for that relationship for him to come back in every once in a while, and helping them understand, what they're displaying as far as the behaviors in front of their children and how that can be confusing, and walking them through the process of really understanding who they are, what they want for themselves, realizing that they are someone of value, and that goes along with the self-esteem and how they perceive themselves. So we do a lot of mindset work and just working on themselves and how they see themselves, and then understanding, the effect on their children. And so you cannot have that person kind of, that swinging door. For myself, when I went through the process of divorce, yes, he was not a good husband, but definitely, I want him to have that relationship with his kids. So he's a good father. And it took some time for me to get out of my feelings as far as the things that we've experienced in the marriage, in that relationship, and really see him in the light of a father only. and even to the point, as a friend as well, so we can talk about certain things, what's going on in his life and things like that. As much as he wants to share, we definitely try to make sure that we have healthy boundaries, but we also make sure that children are in the forefront. So I agree with you when you talk about, a good father does not necessarily equate to a good husband in a certain sense, um, especially when it comes to single parents and comes to that whole breaking up of a relationship, whether it's divorce or whether it's a long-term relationship. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that for sure.
So yeah, and I kind of want to, emphasize the impact that our relationships, especially, when you're married, but also when you're single, the effects that your relationships have on your children. They may sometimes they may not verbalize it, they may not say anything, but they are definitely internalizing it, and I can see it for sure in my
Mhm.
daughter as well. Being in that long term relationship, it was kind of like on again, off again, and it created instability in her.
Mhm.
It kind of shook her confidence. So, I can see that now she's 18 now. And so now we talk a little bit more, and she's told me some things over the years of things that she didn't like, things that happened. But just from like I said, a confidence level, she doesn't have that confidence that I had. So similar to you, I
Yeah.
grew up in a two-parent household. I didn't have, step parents, step brothers, step sisters, half brothers. Like it was just, our nuclear family, which is the four of us. It was very stable. And
Mhm.
so, I grew up very secure. And I see that she doesn't have that, because of the relationship that I was in while I was dating. So yeah, definitely want to emphasize that, and I'm sure you see that in your practice as well,
Mhm.
with clients. So, like, what are some of the things that you tell your clients when, like, trying to tell them? I know you don't tell them what to do, but trying
Right.
to give them clarity as to what's going on, or do you see that often as well? Just again, the effect that, or maybe children acting out in a way, or the effects that their relationships have on their children.
Right. So just helping them understand, it's so core and it's so key to say it's not what I say that they do, it's what they see that I do. So, how I deal with relationships and how I, allow things to happen. And it might be something that I tell my kids, don't do, but then they turn around and they see me doing it. So of course you're giving them, it's confusion. And I really try to help them just see that, first of all, you have to heal within yourself, and you have to understand, like I said, who you are, and the value that you have, what you have to offer as a person. And then you have to look at your children and really try to provide a stable household. So a lot of it is really vision writing. What does your household look like? What do you want it to look like? How do you want your children to be? How do you want your home to be? And talking about not only just a vision for your household, but the core values and setting boundaries, and really talking to your children about those things. And you can do it in an age appropriate way. My children are a lot older, so we can talk a little bit more freer about just our dynamic and family, and things that we want, and things maybe they can talk to me about things that have hurt them in the past or that they've struggled through as a result. And I give them the open door to do that. But just knowing, those age appropriate conversations with your children and making sure that you're understanding where they are and how they feel, and being open for the conversation, and even being open to hear what they have to say about you and calling you out as a
Right.
parent,
Right.
especially when it comes to that relationship dynamic, and really making sure that you're providing a safe home for them. And again, I can't say the word stability enough, but just making sure that there's a stable home and a safe home for them. And so if you're having that person coming in and out, and you're not really modeling the best behavior when it comes to relationships with your ex, or relationships with somebody that you're interested in, that is not, that doesn't help your children really to have the confidence, or help your children really to know, okay, how, when I get older, this is the way that I feel like I need to be treated or valued as a young lady, or valued as a young man. So I definitely try to help them understand that, what they do, what we do as parents, it's a trickle down. It affects your children. The decisions that you make always affects your children.
Yeah. Okay, so you're divorced. You went through a divorce, and
Mhm.
now you were married in your 20s, and now you're in your 40s. So how was dating different um, from when you were in your 20s before you got married versus now that you have children and in your 40s? What's different for you in dating?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm so much more confident in who I am. And that confidence translates into what I would look for in a potential mate. So that's the key thing, is just knowing, because when you're younger, you kind of, you're more free and you're not really understanding who you are, so you don't really know the person that you might be more attracted to, but you don't know the core things as far as like, do they have a vision for their lives, what are their expectations, what is their educational background, what is their work ethic, how would they be as a father, yeah, as a parent, what are their beliefs. We don't ask ourselves those questions as a young person, but I think when as now, being in my 40s, just understanding that those are key things that you need to ask, those are the key things that you need to look for. And I'm more confident in who I am to be able to say, okay, I don't need to date, a whole bunch of people. I can just, if there's somebody that I'm attracted to, or whatever the case is, if they come and they're interested in me having that conversation, and if they don't fit, I don't feel like I have to force anything. So just, it's like being confident in myself to know, like, if I'm out there dating, that's fine. Friendships are fine, but if it's somebody that doesn't fall under certain things that I would say are non-negotiables, then I'm okay to cut it loose and not feel like I have to settle, for anything.
Right. So you are a busy woman. Not only do
Yeah.
you have your own business and you work and you have your children. So when do you find time to date?
Gosh, do I find time today? It's a priority thing. So I think as of late and as of right now, I don't know if I'm in a space where I can, because I have a lot going on. But usually, and this is the great thing about, my children and their father, that they go and spend the summer with him. So during the summer times are really the times that I feel like I'm a little bit more relaxed, that I can kind of take time for myself. And then that's the time where I can kind of open myself up to say, okay, if somebody's interested, let's go out on a date. I feel more comfortable doing it when my kids are away as far as dating. And then just trying to be more, like if they're back, and, depending on work, really just being more structured, so finding the time to date when my kids are here. That person definitely has to know that my kids are going to always come first. And so it might be more phone conversations, it might be more lunch dates, instead of me trying to go out every Friday night. So I really try to make sure that I don't disrupt my kids' schedule and their life for the sake of me wanting to go out and date, if that makes sense. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
I did not really actually get that opportunity when my daughter was growing up. I think one summer she went to her grandparents, her other grandparents who were in Florida. Um, and so I had like a month or so. But that was it. So to me again, it was always a struggle. When I turned 40, so I was dating actually at 39, 40. So what my dating life looked like was I would have to meet people during lunch because just being really guarded and not wanting to introduce people and just kind of trying to get a feel for people. So I did a lot of lunch dates. I had the flexibility to kind of control my schedule for work. That's kind of what I did. So I understand like kind of doing the lunch thing.
Hmm.
And then see my parents can watch my daughter to do something on the weekend. So but it really is kind of challenging like as a single parent.
Right.
What especially once you turn 40 because you like your mindset is totally different, your
Right.
criteria is totally different. And then if you're successful working, like you just don't have a lot of time. And so I find that a lot of women kind of compromise or settle because they just want to be in a relationship because they don't want to be lonely. And
Right.
that's a true feeling, and it's okay to say that. I think a lot of women, especially Black women of color, have a hard time admitting like I just don't want to be alone, I want to be lonely. But that's a real thing to acknowledge, and I don't know if that's something that a lot of your clients go through, or something that you went through. Um, but how do you address the lonely factor with women or your clients when you know that's a thing or they have admitted it, um, and trying to get them out of that space and letting you know, okay, if you're lonely, like you probably are not ready. You probably have some healing to do. But how do you kind
Right.
of advise them in that situation?
I think that a person needs to really understand the real reason why they feel lonely. And I agree with you because if you're lonely and you're wanting females, okay, the male attention, then there's something missing within yourself, because you're going outside looking for something that's missing within yourself. So trying to help them change their perspective. So if you're lonely, is it lonely or is it aloneness? Because there's a difference between the two. Lonely, is the feeling. Being alone and being by yourself is really more of just being in a state of being, right? And so helping them understand, okay, if you're feeling lonely, let's explore those feelings, why you're lonely, and helping them understand that, looking within themselves as to why they might feel lonely, what is missing within themselves, and then truly really trying to help them change their perspective. And this is things that I've done for myself. So changing your perspective as being single, there's so much more freedom that you have of things that you can do, that you can explore, that you can, take up, whether it's hobbies, whether it's business, whether it's going back to school. So just trying to find things that you wanted to do for yourself that maybe you would not have the ability to do it if you were in that relationship. So helping them find themselves again and really loving themselves again, so that will help them anytime they get into the feeling of being lonely. And it's a feeling, just recognizing that you feel this way, but don't necessarily act on it if you're acting out on it in a way to where you're going to call, you know, somebody on the phone and let them come over and hang out. But just understanding that you can feel lonely, but you really need to change the perspective and say, okay, I might feel lonely, but let me try to consider some of these other things that I can do, to take up the time. Let me, do something that I've always written down or always thought that I wanted to do. Let me go out and be comfortable being by myself. So whether that's going out and eating at a restaurant by yourself or something like that, because I think a lot of people attach themselves to another person. And I can talk, for myself for sure. When I was married, it was like we were on one of the same. And so it was very hard for me just to go and be by myself, because I wasn't comfortable with myself. So just helping them understand being comfortable with yourself and giving them some of the steps that they can do in order to get to that place where they're comfortable, confident of who they are. And I think that kind of really helps them not act out on the feelings of loneliness. Because I think that people in general, you're always going to have moments of feeling lonely, but it's just the acting out and what the acting out is and helping them not to go down that line.
Right. Yeah, I've always been, or I'm always a big proponent of women just having hobbies.
Hmm.
Again, especially women of color, I just find that, we as women don't have a lot of hobbies. And we have our kids and we have our jobs, and then our hobbies like getting a man. So,
Right,
and then when we like get a man, like all our attention goes there, and that's a lot for a man to take on. Like, man doesn't want to take on all that, so it's so important to like have again your own space, your own activity, your own time, things for you. And I tell people like, don't let it be um, your hobby being Netflix, like binge watching TV. Like that's not a hobby to me. It's not a
right,
hobby. Or just hanging out with your girlfriend, which is cool. You should definitely have your girlfriends. You should have an outlet, but something else that gets you out of the house, something that you really look forward to doing. So I know like in my mid to late 30s, I started playing softball again in an adult league. So that was kind of
mhm,
like my hobby, my way to get out. And like right now, since everyone knows I have the two kids, two and under, so things have been crazy the last few years since I've been
yeah,
on flight. So, but I did, recently speak to someone like I was like, what, I need to get out, do something for me. I've always wanted to take up tennis, so I contacted someone to start taking tennis lessons. Do something again for me because I need my own space. I love my kids, I love my
right.
husband, but you need your own space. And I don't want to suffocate like anyone,
Right.
and a man doesn't want that either. So yeah, it's definitely important to have something, even if it's a business, something that you've always wanted to do. Like those things are great to have and necessary to
Hmm.
have. So what I do want to talk about, I know we spoke earlier before the podcast, and your approach to relationships after divorce and single parenthood. Um, you said people took it. You kind of thought a little bit differently. So how did you think differently versus other single parents that you knew?
Well, as far as just being a single parent and talking to other people about my experience with my ex-husband and the fact that we do get along and the fact that I do put the kids first. And I'm not saying all single mothers don't do that, but it seems like just my perspective on just wanting to first forgive, right? And not hold any grudges or not be bitter. Because I mean, in that relationship, a lot of things went down. And, if people were to hear my story, they probably say, Jeneen, you really have a right to, be bitter and, not give him any type of slack or access to the kids or whatever the case is. But I just chose, to see my kids as the first and forefront priority. And that meant that I needed to process through the hurt. Needed to forgive, and I needed to be able to open the door and allow their father to come in and to be able to be a father to my children, even though we're in separate households. So just having that conversation, and then also talking about just things that I wanted to do for myself and wanted to do for my life, to go back to school. And, as soon as he walked out the door, it was almost as if I called a university up and
Hmm.
registered for school to go back.
Wow.
But just knowing that I could follow my dreams and not feel as if I needed to be, that it was a life sentence. Like being a single mother is not a life sentence of being strapped down and living a less than life. And I've always just felt like, there's so much more. There's better for me, there's better for my children. And I've always worked towards that. And I don't know, just based on conversations that I've had with other people, that they feel that for themselves, single mothers, that they feel like, okay, well, I've got these kids and this is it. I no longer am my individual, I'm mother. That's my full and foremost identity. And just talking negatively about the children's father in front of their children and things like that. And so just my approach and my perspective on just wanting people to be healthy and happy, and the stability was big. And even for the father of my children, wanting his life to be healthy and him to be happy, and letting him know that, however you want to live and the things that you want for your life, just know that I'm okay with that, for you to have that healthy whatever relationship or whatever it is that you want to do. And I think a lot of people just don't think that. I think some people, that especially when you're in marriage and you're in a divorce, especially with this infidelity and cheating, that they just are like, let him go live under the rug or somewhere under a rock
Mhm.
somewhere. They just want to throw the whole man away, and
Mhm.
not consider their children in that relationship. But I don't know. I have a big heart and I care for people, and I'm able just to see beyond, which, is a grace, beyond the hurt and the things that I've experienced, just to say, okay, the kids come first. I want them to have a good relationship, which means I need to have a good relationship with the children of my father. So that's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed that's a little different. And this is just based on conversations I've had with other people, that kind of say, well, Jeneen, that's just a little different. I don't hear a lot of single mothers really think that way. They're always saying something negative, or they're always, feeling as if they're struggling and they don't think that they could do any better in their life. And that's one of the things that really, that's part of the reason why I have my business, to be able to help other single parents to understand that they can live better and have better for themselves and for their children, and have healthy relationships with the father or the mother of their children, and really helping them dig into that, to be able to start building those healthy relationships.
Listen. listening to our girlfriends or mothers or sisters when you're going through it can be
Right.
so toxic and not helpful at all. I know when I first started practicing as an attorney, I did some family law, and I ended up not liking it because I just felt like it just was no one was happy at the end of the day.
Mm,
But what I saw was I saw over and over and over again so many women who were hurt because this man was not with them any longer, but they had children together. They became vindictive. I don't know how many cases I've seen where women have filed abandonment charges against a father, and that was not the case. They
mhm.
were purposely um, keeping the children away from their father, which is, it's absolutely wrong on so many levels. Again, it is a display of you hurting, but it's not helpful for the children. And so, I was really thinking about just being an advocate for men because what I saw was these women
Mm,
against them, a system against men when it came to their children and having access to them. And, people just not knowing their rights and what to do. But
right.
yeah, definitely when you have that hurt and pain, like, and I understand it, like you are going to be hurt. It is a process. You have to get through that, but not to penalize your children.
Right.
It's not even penalizing the fathers at the end of the day. It's penalizing your children,
Mhm.
what you don't want to do, which happens so many times. So anyone who's like thinking like that, just, always think, okay, what's best for my kids? Because they're taking it in and they're going to process some things that you don't want them to process. And they'll be um, young men or women a way that you don't want them to act that way.
Right.
So
Right.
I remember experiencing that. So, and another big thing for me, even though I wasn't, me and my daughter's father weren't together when she was born. We always had a really civil and a really good, cool relationship. Like even now, we're just like we're super, super cool. But one of the things I never, no, one term I never ever used was baby daddy. Like we never
I
used
love it.
baby
Yes.
daddy, baby mama at all because to me it always just denoted this negative connotation. Just once you say it. So I don't care. Like you're a baby from 0 to 1. After that, they're no longer babies. But again, you think so negatively, like my baby daddy, my baby, like it just all
Right.
these negative feelings. So we never use that term. Even if someone would say it in jest, like I would like clarify, like, no, that's not who he is. That's my daughter's father.
Right.
That's how we
Right.
will refer to him
Right.
as. Regardless of what happened and the disappointment that I had and the hurt that I had. But yeah, first and foremost, that's a term we never, ever, ever used um, at all. So now that again you're back on the dating scene, and you have your two children, they are like teens, preteens
Mhm.
now. So would you date someone who already had children, or do you prefer that they don't at this point in your life?
Well, at first when my children were younger, I was like, no, I don't want to date anybody that has children. But that really is a selfish. I think it's selfish. How dare I think or even set that expectation to date somebody that doesn't have children when I do. So I'm open, to dating somebody that has children. And the one thing about that, though, is just how do they treat their children? What's their relationship with their children? And even, especially if you are dating somebody who has children and it's starting to get into more of a exclusive kind of relationship, even talking to the children, of that person that you're dating, just to kind of get a sense for the family dynamic, I think is key. So yeah, I'm open to dating people, men that have children, but I'm really big on just making sure that they are being, those good fathers, and that they have relationships with their children because, of course, single fathers, as much as we know, the majority of them are sharing the custody and they don't get the majority of the custody or the time with their children. As of late, actually, I've met a couple of guys that they have like the majority of the custody for their children, and they go to the mother on the weekends or every other weekend. But for the most part, that's what we know. So it's really key to make sure that I know what that relationship is like for between the father and their children, especially if they don't have that custody where it's a full custody or they're seeing the children, majority of the time. They're getting them every other weekend or something like that. Because it lets me know how they're going to treat me. It's going to let me know, especially if it starts to become a serious relationship, how they're going to treat my children as well.
Yeah, that's important. I remember again when I was about 39, I started dating again, and I met this guy, and I think he was divorced. I mean, he had a son who was like 5, 6, 7, something like that. But we were just kind of talking, and I was like, "Oh, well, when does he come? When does your son come to spend the night
Hmm.
with you?" And he was like, "Oh, well, he's never spent the night with me," and that was like a red flag to me.
Yeah.
Like why why wouldn't you spend time with your son? Or is there something like, does the woman not trust you, or like, do you just have a hateful relationship? Like, those are kind of like red flags. And so, in a way, to some women that may be like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to share that time with their child or their son. But actually, it means the opposite. You kind of want to rethink that. Like, wait a minute, like,
Right.
why don't you spend time with your kids? Because you don't spend time with
Right.
your kids, you're not going to value my kids,
Right.
probably, not even me. So yeah, those are definitely things that people should look at. What are the dynamics if you're dating someone with children? So okay, so I know again you're in your early 40s, and I
Yes.
have my other group, my pregnancy after 40 group, the pregnancy after 40 ambassador, um, and you do have your teenage kids. So would
Mhm.
you like to have more children?
That's a question that I'm still trying to answer for myself, because, I miss that. I miss the baby age. I miss, all of that experience. But my children are older, and, the thought of me starting over with another one, I don't know. So I can honestly say I'm not sure, and it really just would depend on who my husband is, whether he has children or not. It depends on, I think this time around I would be more prepared, like financially prepared, preparing for not only my children's future, but if we wanted to have another child, their future, that there's a lot of factors. So I would be open to it if we were in a good space, financially, if and even if he did have kids, that would be fine. But if he didn't have kids and he wanted to have a child, then I would be open to that. And I kind of laugh because I say, if that was to happen, then I need my push gift. I need my mommy makeover because I didn't get it the first time. So all of those things, if I was going to have another kid, that's something I'm going to have to put on the table. And I kind of say that jokingly, but then I kind of don't say that jokingly.
Right.
Right, right. So I'm on the fence, because I don't know, like, who's the man that I'm going to marry. I don't know who that gentleman is, and once I know who that is and how our lives mesh together, um, then I will be more comfortable to being open to that. If we're both entrepreneurs and busy, working, building for our future, building a legacy, I don't know if we would be able to be open to have the time dedicated, to have a child and raise a child. So.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. I interviewed someone last week for the
Mhm.
Pregnancy After 40 podcast, and she was 51. She had her
Wow.
daughter at 51. So there is plenty of time.
Oh,
So I don't want
wow.
anyone to think that, hitting 40, that they have to rush and have a baby. Like, we
Mhm.
have women of all ages, like seriously, up until 51, that are having babies naturally or even with assistance. So that's definitely fair, because I know when I was about 37, 38,
Mhm.
my daughter was in high school, and I was thinking, okay, so the guy that I was with, he had 3 kids, and he had said, he didn't want any more kids. And I always wanted another baby, like, for a really long time, but just wanted to be married that time because I'd done the single parent thing.
Mhm.
Um, but then I was kind of like, okay, well, worst case scenario, either I'm with him and we're not gonna have any more kids, or the guys that I'll be dating, if I'm out of this relationship, they'll be older. They would have already had their children.
Mhm.
And so, they probably don't want any more kids. And so I, started processing about 37, 38. Okay, I'm not going to have any more kids. And so I started planning my life based on my daughter graduated from high school when I was like 41, 42, something like that. It's going to
Mhm.
be a whole new life. I was like, okay, I'm just going to be free, and I'm going to travel. I'm going to do all this stuff. And then I got married at
Lo and
41, and then
behold.
had a baby at 41, and then had
Yeah.
another one at 43. So it's just been really, really crazy. So it definitely was not planned. And I was thinking again, like, I was not going to meet anyone who didn't have kids, didn't want kids, or who wanted kids. So
Mhm.
yeah, definitely you have to kind of look at, okay, the man's going to be. My husband, he didn't have any kids. He always
Right.
wanted kids, and I was scared. I was like, well, I, I may not be able to have children. And I'm like, I'm 40. So, I don't know how this is going to work. So yeah, there's
And that's been
definitely
a
something
thought
there.
I've had in my mind as well, as far as the age factor and being in my early 40s, whether or not, because I'm still single. So even if I was to entertain the idea, and so one of the things I love is that you do have that group of women that are having children at a more mature age, let's just
Yes.
say that. So, just kind of getting around that thought that you cannot have children in this age group. So,
Yeah. So you mentioned something earlier
mhm.
that kind of is leading me to this next question. So a lot of women, when they are single, maybe around this age in their mid 30s and up, they're kind of like, okay, my kids are a little bit older, let's say teens, and they're like, okay, I can't really get into any relationship that's serious. I'll just kind of wait until they graduate from high school, and then I can pursue something more full term. Because I know you were stating that you feel a little bit freer, during the summers, and that you date then, but you can't necessarily have a relation. Like you can meet someone during the summer, but then there's like
Mhm.
after when they come back. So is that something that you've thought about saying, okay, well, my kids they're this age, and like you're busy now. Have you thought about, well, let me just wait till they graduate high school and then I'll put like all this effort or more effort into dating?
Well, so the question for me is, what's the effort that I should be putting in, right? Because one, and this is kind of a debate in a church world. A lot of women feel as if they are to be found, which is not necessarily the truth. So just putting myself out there to kind of be seen, or to know that, okay, I'm open to dating. And so just having that perspective as far as, I don't feel like, well, let me kind of go back. I don't feel like I should be actively pursuing someone as far as meeting people with the intention to date. I feel like if it's going to happen and if someone is interested, then I'm open to it. And I'm not going to wait until my kids get older, and graduate, before I start dating seriously. But the one thing that I consider is I'm not going to date multiple people at the same time. And because I'm busy and because, have a lot going on, I want to date with an intention and purpose. So if I feel like, again, that person is not suited, or if this is just a waste of my time, then I'm not going to I'm not going to put any effort into it. So I have dated, and I've been in this area for a short time, but I have dated someone with my kids. Of course, they were here. I met him at a church function, and then we dated, and it was more conversation. And every once in a while, we did go out. We had the lunch dates, but I don't feel like I should have to wait until my kids graduate in order for me to have time, because my kids are older, so they're able to stay home, but then I definitely have my non-negotiables as far as my time that I spend with them. So there are certain times that, I'm not going to put this person I'm dating before my children, because this is time that I spend with my children. So anybody that I date, they definitely need to know that, and he had children as well. So he had times, because he had his daughter every other weekend. So I knew on those weekends that you spend time with your daughter, spend time, with her, because I understand, I get it. You don't put me in front of your daughter, So I don't think that anybody should wait, if they're interested in putting themselves out there to date. Um, but if they decide to do that, then that's fine as well. For me, I don't think I need to wait, or I would not
Right.
wait.
So have you introduced anyone to your children that you were dating?
I have. So the gentleman that I was dating, because we were at church, he'd seen my children at church. He did get to meet my children. So that was the one time that in my dating experience that somebody that I was dating was able to see my children. But other times I have not, because I wanted to make sure that I knew that this person was somebody that maybe this could be a little bit more of a serious relationship, and we're not just casually dating, and just testing their character, to know who they are. So I'm very protective about my children which I think all mothers, whether you're single or not, should, all parents should, and protecting my space, my home, my physical home. And so if I, was dating this one guy, we had phone conversations and we would meet in a mutual location, never to come pick me up because I'm just getting to know you. But because of the gentleman that I was recently dating, we met in church, it was more comfortable because we knew them and we knew him, we knew his daughter. And so it was a little bit more comfortable. He already met my children. So of course he had the opportunity to have a little bit more access in the beginning parts of dating than I would normally do.
Right, right. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about your practice, your
Mhm.
business. So how do you exactly work with or serve your clients as a single parent solutionist and consultant?
So we focus on everything that pertains to single parenthood, that life as far as you as an individual really understanding who you are as a single parent, who you are as you yourself, and making that distinction. We focus on the mindset, things that you believe about yourself, things that you believe about yourself that's not necessarily true, what people have said and imposed on you. As you being a single parent, we focus on which is the biggest thing, is the co-parenting relationship and how to work through conflict and really try to build as best as you can a positive relationship with the other parent of your children. But we also talk about advocating for your children in the educational system, because that is a thing for single parents. I really believe sometimes single parents can be tagged in a certain manner and their children can be tagged in a certain manner, talking about the stigmas as they're in the school system. So I help them work through advocating for their children properly and the things that you can do to make sure your children succeed, and also holding these teachers and principals accountable. And then we talk about leadership. So, what does it look like to lead in your household? Things that you would want to do for yourself, as far as where do you see yourself personally? Is it a business? What is it that you want to do? Kind of exploring their dreams. So, just everything that goes along with it, your finances, parenting as a single parent, and understanding the differences, between what a single parent household parenting style looks like versus a two parent household. So I kind of just walk them through that, and really, especially with one-on-ones, talking to the clients directly in the areas that they might feel stuck in or struggle in, or they might not have clarity, or they might need that extra assistance, somebody just to kind of journey with them through that. I try to see, the things that they're really needing, and we can talk specifically on some of the challenges that they're experiencing. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm very big on talking about the statistics and stereotypes, because I think that sometimes we have that thought process of being a single parent, but we're believing a lie, you know, just based on some of the things that we see out there. I don't think that we see enough positive single parents that are doing great things, and they just so happen to be a single parent. So just trying to help them again, kind of process through mindset as far as what they look, how they view themselves. I think that's the biggest thing, because once you can view yourself in a different manner, as being capable and able, then everything else should be able to follow suit. Relationships, your children, your finances, following your dreams. So we talk about all of that.
Yeah. So you kind of triggered me when you started talking about that, as far as the stigma and the labels that people put on you. So I
Mhm.
remember when I had my daughter, it was actually after I finished my first year of law school. And then I had her, and one of my mom's friends was like, "Oh, well, my friend wants to talk to you real quick." It's someone I've known all my life. So I got
Mhm.
on the phone and, it's kind of saying hello. And she was like, first thing she said was, "So how does it feel to be a single parent?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, it was just the most horrifying thing that anyone could, like, literally. My daughter was probably like within a week old, and that
Mm.
was the first thing that she said to me. And then the next thing was, "Well, what about law school? Like, what are you going to do with school?" And at that time, okay, I just had a baby, but it was never a consideration for me to not finish law school. which I did. I didn't even take that year off. I was back in law school like when my daughter was like 5 weeks old. But yeah, I mean, the things that people kind of put on you. But I realized when I went through that, I kind of packed my daughter up. We left the state a year later so I can finish law school. But I remember several people were, when I graduated, they were like, I never thought that you'd be able to do it with your daughter. And I think that some people kind of like they take that. Maybe people believe that it was never a consideration for me for to not finish. But I think, if I were a different person and someone's saying that, I could have been like, oh, well, okay, so I have this kid or this baby now, so I can't pursue my dreams, which is
Right.
totally not true. And it sounds like that you work with women and kind of actually pushing that and promoting that just because you are a single parent. Not to say that it's going to be easy, but you can definitely still do that. And you're kind of guiding them and encouraging them to go forward um, in their dreams
Right.
and
Right.
pursue. So is dating a topic that a lot of your clients or single parents actually talk about?
They do, and that's an ongoing conversation because because the thing is that a lot of single parents they they want to make sure that they're dating right, or they're single parents that are just dating because they're lonely and not healthy or healed from whatever happened in their past to be able to kind of confidently go out there. So it is a big conversation. It's a big conversation because a lot of single parents feel as if they are not worthy of being married or worthy of being in a relationship because they are single parents. And then, on the other side, which is one of the things that I really definitely try to lend my voice to, is just the perception of single moms being desperate, especially. Because you're a single mom, people think that we're desperate for relationships and, approaching single parents as if you have to settle, and just helping them navigate through that as well. But a lot of larger conversations I've had, and not just with single parents, is just a conversation of when something happens to the child of a single parent. There's always that person that says, well, single parents need to be more careful of who they're dating. And when I hear those things, it kind of grinds me, because it's like, you don't know that personal situation, as far as what happened with their children. But everybody always has this assumption that single parents, when they're dating out of loneliness, or they're dating not being mindful of the person that they're dating. And it's always going to be a train wreck because, they're a single parent, and whatever other stigma that's kind of attached to them, um, you know, that they might be loose, or they might have different baby daddies, and it's all this negativity that comes with it. And so just trying to have these conversations to say, the way that you're considering or looking at a single parent is not necessarily the truth. There's single parents that come in all different, I say, shapes and sizes. I call it a spectrum. So you don't know. And when it pertains to dating, me just talking to single parents as far as making sure you're healed within yourself. And again, like we talked about earlier, the whole lonely factor. Why are you lonely, and not dating because you're lonely? But then also helping them know that they are worthy of marriage if that's what they desire. You're worthy of a relationship if that's what you want. But let's make sure that we handle these things first before we put ourselves out there. Nobody goes into a relationship or marriage expecting it to fail. And I think that we have to be mindful of that, and because we have children does not negate us from not wanting to be in relationships. So that's dating and relationships and marriage. That's like, it's a big conversation, because I think a lot of us, and I can include myself in there, feel as if, there's nothing lost. As far as me saying that I want to be married, it's not a negative thing to say that, even though I'm a single mother. Being a single mother, being a single parent is not the end all.
Right.
I'm so much more of this and that. There's so many different things, that I am, other than a single parent. So yeah, we do have a lot of those conversations about dating, about, breaking through being worthy of relationship and helping them understand that. It's a self-esteem conversation, really.
Yeah. And so what I love about what you do is it's not therapy. So it's not saying that something's wrong, but it's one to me it means that okay, listen, you are not alone on this journey. Plenty of women have gone through it, but it's again, it's more of a positive experience. Because at the end of the day, because we focus on dating here, dating in relationships, and if you're a single woman or a single mother, like a man does not want to hear like all your issues, like all the negativity and that
Right.
hurt that you have. No one wants to hear all that. And so it's important to mend those relationships that you have with your parents, I'm sorry, with your children's parent or father, mother. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because no one wants to deal with it. That's to me would be a red flag. Like you don't have a civil relationship with your children's other parent, then that's a red flag. So um it's important. I love, again, you're about community
Mm-hmm.
and you have your own group as well. But tell us a little bit more, I guess, about how long you work with your clients, and how it's all set up. But do you work with them for a certain period of time, for months, or is it a one-time thing? How do you work with your clients?
Well, the first thing I do want to talk about is the group that I have, because it's not a group just to encourage, and it's not a group just for community, but I love to share. I feel like I'm a teacher by nature, so there's a lot of things that I share in there, tools, strategies, whatever you want to call it, that will help them in that community. So I kind of just put some general information there. But as far as working with clients, I do have a group coaching cohort that's going to start in April, and it is 3 months. And the reason why it's 3 months is because, with the work that you do, some of it, and I would say most of it, honestly, would be mindset work. And I think that once you process through how you perceive yourself and how you see yourself and your perspective, um, that's going to take some time, because you're breaking old thought patterns, mindset patterns, and that's not something that's going to happen overnight. So I do have that group that is 3 months. As far as working with one-on-one clients, it really is open to the length of time that they want to work with me, and it's really more pertaining in particular to their challenge, their presenting challenge as a single parent. So I do work on a month by month basis if I need to, but I really like the community sense, even in the group coaching. In my group coaching program, I don't allow a lot of clients in, because I want them to be able to know that it's still more of a I hate to use the word safe place, because a lot of people use it, but having that sense of confidentiality as they share, but then also knowing that they're not by themselves. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of single parents experience, that they're by themselves, they're a single parent by themselves, that they don't see anybody else kind of having the struggles that they're going through. And so being able to have that group together and to coach them not only will allow them to work on whatever challenges they're working on or they're dealing with, but also knowing in a group setting that there's other people that have the same challenges and they're not by themselves. And I think that helps them. I think that the process of them kind of moving through and being successful in the journey of single parenthood is a lot better. The end result is a lot better than that one-on-one. So I'm a big proponent in the group coaching program for sure.
And so what's the name of your group?
The name of my group is Single Parent Strong, and that is the Facebook group that I have for any single parents, whether it's a single father, whether it's a single mother. I think a lot of women kind of gravitate more towards community, but I know single fathers need community as well. So that is open to anybody. And then, of course, if anybody's interested in the group coaching program that is launching in April, they can reach me. I would tell them to join the group. But they can reach me. My social media handles is at Jeneen Elizabeth, and I have links there as well. So if they wanted to reach me, they can DM me, they can join the group, or they can go to one of the links on my social media channels.
Okay. And I'll also put your information in the show notes as well.
Yes.
So as we conclude this conversation, I've got a couple hot seat questions. I
Okay.
know you're really like you're really super serious and you're focused, but these are kind of some of the questions
Okay.
that
Okay.
real life things, right? So
Okay.
one of the questions we asked someone else before was, have you ever had an over aggressive pursuer?
No, I have not.
Lucky you.
I have not. I have not. Thank the Lord.
Okay, well that's good. Is there anyone that you regret not pursuing, or that you regret breaking up with?
um, for me, yes, I regret the non-pursuing because I don't know what my and I don't want to call it a resting face, but I have a certain look on my face. And I knew that somebody was interested, but I was waiting on them and they were waiting on me. And guess
Mhm.
what? Nothing happened.
Oh,
So that is
really?
kind of, it's a little bit of a regret. It's a little bit of a regret.
Okay. So what happened with that person? Did he move on and start dating someone else or get married?
He did, and I
Mhm.
actually moved to the state of Georgia, and he is in South Carolina. So
Okay.
at this point, it's been so many years. I'm just like, well, if it was meant to be, then it'll be. So there you
Right, right, right. Okay. I think I know the answer to this one, but have you ever told someone that you love them and you haven't?
go. No, I have not. I have
Okay.
not. I'm very intentional with my words. So if I say that I love you, then you better believe it.
Yeah. Okay. And have you ever ghosted anyone before? Has anyone ever ghosted you? Just stop communication altogether. No
Yes, on both
talking.
ends. I
Okay.
think I might be an expert at ghosting
Oh
because I
no,
don't want to waste
not
my
you,
time. Huh?
Janine. Not
Well,
you.
because I don't want to waste my time. And if we don't have good conversation, like our initial one or two,
Mhm.
then I'm not going to answer. Like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But I've had that happen to me as well. So I know how it feels.
Right, right. Okay, so you know how it feels.
Right.
To me, I'm like, okay, first, maybe second conversation, it's not a big deal. But let's say you've known someone for maybe like a month or two and you were talking, and you're kind of like, no. Do you feel like you have to explain to that person that you no longer want to talk to them, or do you just kind of, let it go as well?
Well, it depends on how I don't want to say serious the connection was, but it does depend on that connection. So I feel like if it was a decent connection, that it potentially could have gone somewhere, but something kind of was thrown in there, then yeah, I definitely deserve that person an explanation. But when I say I've ghosted people, it's been like at the very beginning stages, and I'm
Right.
like, nah,
Yeah, yeah. I
that's not
understand.
gonna work.
Okay, last question. What is the best quality in a man for you?
Best quality, a man that has a vision for his life, for sure. A man
Okay.
that knows what he wants in his life and what he wants to do and how he wants to do it, for sure.
Yeah. And I would venture to say that's probably different than what your criteria was when you were in your 20s. That probably was not something
In my 20s, it
that
was all about the car and it was all about the looks.
yeah, yeah. Things
Yeah, so thank
change.
God for maturity.
Things change. So Janine, thank you so much for joining us today on all the information. Again, we will post all your information in the show notes. If you have any questions, you can always comment. If you see this video in the post or on YouTube, you can always put a question or comment in the post, and I'll relay them over to Janine. And again, I'll have all the information there. So, Janine, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so
And
much.
sure, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. You too. Thank you.
Bye, guys.